Hey guys, welcome back to the process. Today's episode is a really special one. I'm sitting down with one of my oldest friends. We've known each other for almost 20 years. We grew up together. We went our separate ways for a while, but we have recently reconnected. And this conversation is a way that we captured a concept that we've been talking about a lot over the past few months. I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. All right, Megan, welcome to the process. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm stoked to be here.
Today, we are going to be jumping into a topic that we've been talking about nonstop anyway in our voice notes for the past
Mhm.
3 or 4 months. And I just thought, how amazing would it be to capture these thoughts, capture these revelations as they're happening in both of our lives, as they're shifting both of our lives so much to have a place that, yeah, this is captured, not just for us, not just for you, the listener, but also for us 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, we can look back on this episode and go, holy shit, this is where it all started. And this is where we really started to each crystallize these ideas in a new way. So, what is it that we're talking about today? We are talking about putting in the reps. And what I mean by that is by literally just taking action towards whatever it is in your life, whether it's a goal, whether it is a skill, whether it is just something that you've always wanted to do but have been scared to try. And this notion of putting in the reps to get better at it, essentially. But before we jump into that, I thought it would be helpful to kind of take a step back and just go, well, why don't we do this? It's a pretty simple concept. So why don't we put in the reps? Why aren't we consistently showing up in all these different aspects of our lives? What's stopping us? What's the block? And I thought we could just both share a little bit of our experience and just kind of see what comes up because, like I said, this is something that we have both been working through and talking about for months now.
Yeah, I think for me, it's this feeling that I need to be good at something pretty quickly in order to move forward with it. Like, I feel like what keeps me stuck and from not achieving or practicing a thing that I want to is that maybe I'll start it out, I'll get some reps in. I'll inevitably feel defeated when I'm not amazing at it in a week or 2, and that or it's something that I'll like a habit that I'll hang on to for a couple of weeks and then fall off of because of, for whatever reason. Um this idea that yeah, you're either good at something or you're not good at something. And if you're not naturally good at something, then what's the point in going down that rabbit hole? I would be better off, like just spending time on things that I am naturally good at, which is just such a wrong way of thinking about this whole thing, which is, part of the conversation we've been having, but I think is such a natural just state of mind and tendency for us.
Absolutely. I think it's very much like part of the human experience where and part of potentially our conditioning of, yeah, you have these things that you're good at, lean into those, and then there's all these other things that you're not good at, and failure is bad, so stay away from it, and those just aren't your things, and that's okay. Just focus on the stuff that you're good at, and you'll be sweet, you'll be fine, you'll have a good life. And I think it is, I would say, something that everyone would be able to relate to because it is not really talked about. Failure is not really talked about as a positive thing. It's it's a very scary thing. It's a very embarrassing thing that you want to avoid at all costs. So of course, if you do a couple of reps at, pottery and you're not good at it, then it would be very easy for your brain to go, well, that reinforces the story that this isn't meant for me. This isn't one of the things that I do. And so then you just steer clear of it. You stop going, you cancel your membership or you just quit whatever you were doing. And I think that that kind of can happen in any element of our lives and these stories they aren't new. It's not like you just develop this story at 28 and suddenly, you struggle with things that you're not good at. It's like we are wired from a very young age to have certain beliefs and certain stories about who we are, what we're capable of, and frankly, what we're not capable of, what we shouldn't be doing. for me, like, I mean, Megan, I met you in grade 6, and that period for me, grade 6 to grade 8, is really where I solidified these beliefs and these stories. And for me, it was always, I'm the smart one. I'm the one that gets the highest marks. I'm the one that just knows things and figures stuff out really quickly. And I remember being in middle school and having these moments where it was really pushed onto me, not intentionally, of course. We're all kids, but there's these moments where, for example, someone came up to me in the playground and was like, so and so beat you on this test. And I had no idea what to do with that information. But of course, internally, my brain was like, like you're the one to beat, which means you're really smart, which means you need to make sure you maintain this story because that's who you are. You are the smart one. And then another memory of going to an awards night and having a couple of kids run up to me and go, "Oh my gosh, Brooke, you're getting 8 awards tonight." And again, my system is like, that story is like, "Okay, you're really smart. You get praised for doing well. So keep doing that. Keep finding ways to be the smart one." And so that then became like my whole operating system. I was like, "All right, this is who I am. I'm the smart kid. I'm the one that, yeah, like that was it. That was it." So I then felt an enormous amount of pressure to maintain that. And that then shaped so many of the decisions that I made throughout school because I needed to portray that I was naturally good at whatever it was that I was doing, when in reality, what I was actually doing was just choosing the activities and the extracurriculars and the subjects that allowed me to fit into that story, to slot in exactly correctly how I needed to. So I avoided stuff that I wasn't good at. So like I always wanted to do painting. I think in grade 7, I think my homeroom teacher was like the art teacher. And so we did a little bit of art in homeroom and I sucked at it. And I was like, okay, never again. And so I never took an art class, even though I've always wanted to paint. And and the same thing happened with lots of other things. Like I became known as the girl who got really high marks, was really good at music, and was good at basketball. Like those were my 3 things. And I'm sure from your perspective, like that was exactly who I was. That was my whole identity.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so interesting that that was your experience and that was the identity that was created for you or you co-created with peers and your parents and teacher pressures, etc. Like just hearing that, it's just so wild that you had that level of pressure on you, but it was totally noticeable from us as your peers. Like Brooke Goodyear was the smart one. She was the one that was going to ace the test. She was yeah, it just that story that was created for you on behalf of you, partially within you, like totally, yeah, changed, how you were seen by peers and your experience as a child and what was successful and what wasn't. Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
lot.
It was a lot, and there were definitely positive elements. Like it's not all bad, right? Like it taught me a lot about hard work and it taught me a lot about like perseverance in those areas, specifically, I should say. Um, and I'm grateful for that. I am grateful for the way that my brain works and that I was able to tap into that and really use that throughout school. But then there's this other side of it where it shut me off, this story that I created, and I'll take accountability for that. Like, yes, I was a child, but also, there's no one else responsible. It's me. I created this story that then shut me off from all of these other things. And you would think that, maybe you graduate high school and then you go to college and you get to create yourself this whole new identity. But that was not the case for me. The stories continued. Like it never actually stopped until a few years ago when I started to become more aware of it. But even in college, I this story was still my whole life. I took a calculus class because I had taken it in high school and I aced it. And then I got into college. I took the same calculus class thinking it would be easy and I failed the first test and then I quit immediately. Like, I was like, "I'm never going back. I'm never doing that again. I don't need math. I'm in a music diploma, degree. Like, I don't need math. The only reason that I took it was because I thought it would be easy because I did it in high school. But now looking back, I can see that the part of the reason why I did well in high school was because I learned how to recognize patterns within academia. Like, I understood how to structure an essay. I understood how to answer a question in a way that the teacher wanted, like what they wanted to see. I was able to deliver on that. Not necessarily that I learned everything. I did a lot of memorizing, whether it was conscious or not. Like, I memorized information, and that happened to me for calculus. And then I got into college and tried to do the same thing, and it was like as soon as it was presented a different way, I failed. And then I couldn't handle that failure. It was so threatening to my sense of self. I could not handle it. I had to run away from it. I couldn't even imagine putting in the reps and going, "Oh, well, this just shows me that I need to work on this, this, and this." Like, there was no capacity for that at that point in my life. And so I quit. And then I moved to Australia and started doing my master's degree. And I remember thinking, "Okay, I'm in a new continent. I am not gonna be seen as a smart girl here. I'm just gonna stay, like, fly under the radar, do my thing, graduate, whatever." Within 2 months, I was already the person that people were coming to and asking for advice and asking questions, like, not even, like, school related sometimes. Just like an event that was coming up, they just assumed I would be the one with the answer. And I was like, What is happening right now?" And again, it was only now, like, now looking back that I can see, oh, that same story. It was still there because of course I was gonna show up the same way because the story hadn't changed. I was still living from the lens of I need to be good at things and I'm gonna lean into the stuff that I'm good at. And so of course my behavior showed up the same way. And so it's so interesting to me now to look at, the way that I've changed and the way that I approach things now is so different. But at that time, I didn't understand that it's okay to be bad at something. Like, and it sounds so silly when I say it because, of course, it's okay to be bad at something. But my story was so deeply embedded in my nervous system that it was such a threat to me that I totally avoided. I was just like, these are my 3 things that I'm good at, and I will live my life doing these 3 things, and I guess I'll never paint, and I'll never do drawing, and I'll never do baseball, and I'll never do, like, I could list off so many things that I could have done, but I never did because, similar to you, it's like I'm either good at it or I'm bad at it. But even I would argue worse is that I never even tried. I never even did 3 or 4 or 10 reps and then went, "Oh, no, I suck at this." It was like, I'm not even going to attempt it because there is a chance I won't be good at it from the very first try, and I can't risk that because my identity can't handle it. And, that feels really big for me to even say, like, publicly, but look, it's my truth. Like, that was my life up until a few years ago when I started to go, "Hang on a second. Hang on a second. This isn't right. This can't be it for me." And that's where this whole idea of the reps really started to come in.
Yeah, it's wild how strong those inner stories we have about ourselves and what we can and can't do, how strong they are and how just immature they are. You didn't sit there as a kid and go, "Okay, this is how, this is my identity. This is who I wanna be. This is how I'm going to move through the world." You just, were naturally gifted in one area and people praised you, and you had to live up to that expectation by your peers and by teachers that had an expectation of you that they didn't have an expectation of the rest of us or not to the same level. And so, I mean, it's so wild to me that that story is so old for you. That's like such a little brook that, adopted that or had to be held up to that standard, and look at all the years that you've been carrying that story and how your life has been impacted because of it. And like, yeah, there's going to be positives to it. You have an incredible focus. You really leaned into your gifts and were able to sharpen them. You're really effective in a lot of ways. But I think it's so brilliant that you are just able to now in this place go, "That's amazing." I love those different areas. I feel strong in them. And how can I lean into some of these other areas that I don't feel as comfortable in and get more comfortable by doing the reps and by feeling okay being uncomfortable, being bad at something, so as to expand your world and, all the joy that you can have and all the people you can meet and the experiences, you can have. So, yeah, how cool. Even though it's taken a minute, at least you've gotten to that place where, where you're able to reassess and say, "Hey, maybe this story isn't, you know, the only part of my identity. Maybe there's more for me that I can experience."
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to just acknowledge that those, like you said, those stories are not new. And even when you do start to challenge them, you're not challenging 1 year of your life that you're like, "Oh, yeah, I believe that for a little bit." It's like you said, it's like a little version of you, which means that it is at least 15 years probably, if not 20 plus years that this story has been a part of your life. And so even when you start to unpack it and rewire it and challenge it, it's of course it's gonna be hard because it has dictated so many of your decisions and so much of the way that your life has turned out because it's lived in your nervous system for most of your life. And so it is a really big task to unpack, but I think that this concept of doing the reps creates such a sense of lightness and liberation of like, okay, this is going to take a minute, like you said, it's going to take a bit, but there's this other way. There's this expansive, beautiful, opportunistic way that I can start to shape and like reshape my sense of self by letting go of the outcome, like letting go of it needing to be a certain way, needing to have control or whatever that looks like for you, and just being able to go, hang on, I'm going to lean into the process instead. And I think for me, the first way that this, when you think about doing the reps, like let's talk about it. Like doing reps, essentially repetition, right? So you're doing something multiple times. When I first think of that, I think of the gym, right? Like everybody knows you go to the gym, you have to do reps. You can't just go to the gym, look at your muscles, and they get bigger. You have to pick up a weight, you have to lift them up multiple times or whatever, like however the different movement is, you have to do it multiple times in order for there to be change. In order, you have to flex the muscle. And that makes so much sense to me. I'm like, yep, that's very clear. That's like concrete. And then a few years ago, the first time that I really heard this concept applied in a different way was around your relationship with money. And I heard someone talking about it and how when you are, changing the way that you use money and that you see money, you have to put in the reps. As in, you have to practice making decisions with your money to flex the muscle and to get better at making decisions with money. And when I heard that, it blew my freaking mind because I was like, what do you mean? Like, if I do that a whole bunch of times, I'm going to get better at it. So that means it's not fixed. Like the level of skill that I have right now is not the level of skill that I could have 6 months from now. Just because I say I'm not good at money doesn't mean I always have to be. There's another way. It blew my brain wide open. Like it just was like, whoa, okay, hang on a second. So if I can apply this to money, could I apply this to anything? To anything? And that's where I think that moment was like the biggest catalyst for me to go, hang on a second. Like I'm about to change my life because this concept is making me feel like there's a possibility that I could change instead of I am this, I'm not this, I'm good at these things, I'm bad at these things. Here, that's who I am. Like, hello, this is me, this is Brooke, this is who I'll be for the next 50 years. It's like, nope, I have these skill sets. This is where I'm at right now. And I love how you used the word and earlier, and I can change it by this really, really simple thing of doing the reps.
It's such a good point too that your example of your relationship with money, like not something that we would necessarily associate with reps. You think about your relationship with money is largely formed by your parents' relationship with money, how you were brought up, influences in your sphere, not something that you would necessarily work on and improve, you know? So I love that example that it's not just about getting better at art or getting better at cooking or, some of these like concrete skill sets or hobbies, but it's literally everything. Um, the example that, going back to what really landed with me was the example that you shared with me about Alex Ramosi, who, if people don't know who he is, he's like a self-made billionaire or on his way to be super successful, owns multiple businesses, has books, is a very competent person. And you share this example that when he goes into, create an ad campaign for an upcoming book or whatever it is, whatever kind of project, that his reality that he lives in, his expectation for himself is that he's going to need to put 100 reps in order to get it, in order to get that one ad that is going to hit and, resonate with his audiences and, bring him what he's looking for, resonate with users and get them to take the action he's wanting them to take. And that hit me so profoundly working in the general digital marketing space because it's just a great example that, is very much in my sphere that, this is not a guy who, this is not an electrician who is doing an ad campaign for the first time and is like, "Okay, I'm gonna suck at this." This is Alex Hormozy coming in and going, "Okay, I have done this many times before. I am going to go ahead and do this new ad campaign, and my expectation for myself is that it is going to take 100 times in order for me to find that golden ad that moves the needle in an interesting way." And it's like, if that guy, with all of the experience that he has, this isn't a brand new skill set for him. If that guy has all of the experience he has and his expectation for himself is still that he's still going to need to put in all of those reps, then, like, what an incredible reframe. He essentially is rewriting the rules for how this world works. Instead of, for me, I would almost, like, judge him immediately going, like, "Well, he should," like, that's kind of embarrassing that it would take him 100 times to get this after he's done it multiple times. So, it's just I think it's such a great reframe that if you change your expectations of how this thing goes, then you can actually consistently achieve what you're looking for. Like, if you put in the reps, it would be unreasonable for you to not get better at the thing or to not, hit it with that one specific ad. So such a yeah, I don't know, that really hit with me. This idea of trusting that if you put the reps in and you show up, that you will get what you want at the other side of that.
Yeah. It's so cool. I think especially because he has, 15 years experience in business and he has been running ads specifically, like that's his thing of running ads since he started. And so he's done this for 15 years. And so I would think the same, like, okay, well, he has done so many now that he should be able to like write one headline and it just absolutely smashes. But he doesn't have that approach every single time. It's like, "Now, this is a numbers game. I've got to play the game. I've got to put my reps in. I've got to, put something out there. Oh, it didn't quite work. Make a bit of an adjustment. Okay, I learned that. I learned that little bit of feedback. Now I'm going to adjust this." And then being able to, slowly recognize the patterns and refine and then get to a point where he knows that I've done so much work that of course it's now going to be successful because I've already done all the failures. Because failing is a prerequisite for success. You cannot get to be successful unless you're willing to fail first. Unless you stick to those 3 things that you're good at and that's all you ever do for your whole life, then okay, maybe this doesn't apply to you. If you're happy to live in that sphere of just doing those 3 things forever, then great. I'm really happy for you. But if you have that sense of curiosity or longing or that like flutter in your tummy of like, "Oh man, I really wish that I could do this." You know that feeling? And being able to go, "Hang on, so I could do it and I will do it, but I'm gonna change my goalpost." Like, instead of going, "Well, I need to be at this level," I'm gonna go, "I'm gonna get as many reps in as I can, and I'm just gonna enjoy the process," because each time I do a rep, I'm getting a little bit closer. And this was such a cool thing that you said in one of your voice notes a little while ago was, by expanding that time horizon out from 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, where you're like, oh man, I've been doing this for 10 days. Why am I not an expert yet? Which, again, maybe that sounds silly, but that's how my brain would have worked. And it sounds like it would have been similar for you. So it's probably going to resonate for some of our listeners. But instead of doing that, going, okay, well, I'm going to give myself a runway of 500 reps. And every rep that I do, I am now one rep closer to getting to 500. And like you said, Megan, it is unreasonable to expect that I would not get better. If I've done something 500 times, come on. Like, there's no way you're still gonna be I think even subconsciously, you would just get better because your brain we are pattern recognition machines. That's what we do. So if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you're gonna start picking up patterns and go, "Oh, hang on. That didn't quite work. When I put the brush into the water and I don't dry it enough, it kinda messes with the color. Next time I'm gonna dry it a little bit more." Right? And so you're making these little incremental changes. Some of them you'll be aware of them. Some of them you probably won't even be aware of them because your brain just knows what to look for if you've done something enough times. But if you only give yourself 10 tries and you don't nail it, well, then, you're totally missing out on that other 490 trials that could have given you so much more information and joy and then outcomes eventually.
Yeah, and how liberating to know that it is just a numbers game and that no matter what it is, whatever thing, skill set, whether it's communication or like getting better in conflict or getting better at a skill set in your job or getting better at a hobby that whatever it is, if you show up and you do the reps, how liberating to know that you actually will get better at it. Like you can actually have anything that you want if you just show up and you do the reps. Um, I think that's just such a reframe and I think yeah, for me it's this idea of like rewriting the rules that I keep trying to remind myself of because if I could just rewrite the rules, like, I think that the world works in one way. If I could just rewrite those rules and change my expectations, then I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't feel defeated when on the like, I've been doing a thing for a week and I'm like, it's not really clicking. Like, I'm not really getting better. It's like, well, I should never expect to be good at something after doing it for only a week. And to your point, like, what a reframe to be like, I've been doing this thing for a week and I just don't think it's for me. It's not really like, I'm not jiving with it. It's not moving the needle. I don't see myself progressing. What a reframe to be like, I'm like 7 reps towards my 500 or 500 might be too high. Maybe it's 200. I'm 7 reps closer to 200. And like at 200, I'm for sure it'd be unreasonable for me not to be better than I am right now. So how freeing and amazing is that? Um, the thing also that really resonated with me that you mentioned is this idea of like input versus output. And I think that kind of like links into that same thing where I've put 7 days worth of effort in, like input in, and you almost expect that, yeah, progress will be linear and that I'm going to put a week of work in and then I'm going to see a week of work out. I'm going to see like 7 days of benefit. I'll be able to track progress. And if I do another 7 days, I'm going to see that's like that same linear, output coming back out to me. So that talk about that speech example because like it sounds so obvious when you talk it through, but at first it was definitely not how how I thought that would go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it is really important to just say that progress, it is not linear, and if you go into something thinking that every time you put 1 rep in, you're gonna get the equal benefit out, it is a recipe for feeling discouraged as hell very quickly because you expect to see, like, if you're going to the gym, you expect to see weight loss happening right away, or if you're working on pottery, you expect to see, like, this workable piece of clay that you can, paint and put in your house from week 2. And if that doesn't happen, it's incredibly discouraging. And you go, well, okay, well, I'm not seeing any results. So obviously, this is a waste of my time. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. All these stories start to come back up, these old stories that live deep in your nervous system. And so the more that we can really understand that progress is not linear, the more that we can let go. And the example that I often use is from my work as a speech therapist, where I'm working with toddlers who are just learning how to talk. What normally happens is parents will say to me, look, I practiced all the words you said. I said them all day, every day, and it's been a week and they're still not saying it. Why aren't they saying it? They're not making any progress. Nothing is happening. And consistently, I end up talking about how if we think about children when they're first learning language, they are taking in so much information, not just from the words we are intentionally trying to teach them if they have a language delay, but also, they're hearing it in our routines. They're hearing it in the way that we talk to each other, like the other adults around. Like they are taking in so much information and their brains are mapping all of that information. They're starting to connect meaning to words and to objects. And all of that happens under the surface. And that all has to happen first. Before they say any words, all of that comprehension has to happen first. And so we don't see it necessarily. We might see it if we say, hey, go get your shoes, and then they go and get their shoes and the parents like, oh my god, they understand shoes. And that to me is progress, but it's not very visible. So a lot of times parents will get discouraged and think that progress isn't happening, and then undoubtedly every single time there's a leap, there's a big jump, there's an explosion. All of a sudden they've got 20 words. Parents can't believe it. They're so amazed. Sometimes they're like, I can't even keep track of all the words that they're saying anymore because it's happening so quickly. And every time it's like, yes, because progress isn't linear. They don't learn language in a straight line where it's like one word in the brain, one word out, one more word in, one more word out. It's like, no, no, no. They've got to go, 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 go. It's all internal. And then you're going to have a big, steep climb because everything is like culminating together and coming together in a way that it's like, oh, this all makes sense to me now. And now my body knows what to do and my brain knows what to do. And I can like say all these words. But that applies to everything, the exact same thing. If you are working on meditation, for example, it's not going to be that every time you do a practice that you're like incrementally better, like 5% better every single time. You're going to have some good practices and then you're going to have some absolutely shit practices where you're like, that was horrible. And potentially if you are stuck in that mindset of there needs to be that equal in and out, then you're going to get down on yourself. You're going to start beating yourself up because you're like, why am I not getting better? But it's because we've been taught the wrong rules. Like you said, Megan, we have been taught to live in a world where failure is to be, shamed and to be seen in such a negative way instead of celebrated. Imagine if you could just trust that if I failed 100 times, the 101st time there was going to be some sort of success, how much faster would you want to experience all of those failures? If you knew that on the other side of all of those failures was going to be success, the rate at which you would want to fail, I would argue, would increase exponentially because you truly know internally that failure is a prerequisite. It has to happen first with anything that's worthwhile, with anything that you're like, this is hard and challenging, but I really want it. I've always wanted to do this. You have to be willing to fail because It's not gonna happen all at once. It's not gonna happen in the timeline that you think because it's not linear, but it will happen if you continue to put in the reps.
Yeah. And how, like, exciting almost to know that to just challenge that belief that progress is linear. It's almost exciting, not seeing any progress in a way, because then you're like, "Am I gonna have a quantum leap?" Like, is that right or not? Maybe not, but knowing that progress isn't linear, you're not going to be hard on yourself when you put some input in and you don't get it out. And I think that idea of like, yeah, failure is a prerequisite to success, and it's a numbers game, and you need to get your reps in, and you know that you're going to be more effective, better, whatever, once you get those reps in, and you know that it's just a numbers game, then yeah, how can I fail as quickly as possible in order to get out of this uncomfy stage of feeling like I suck at something? It makes me think a little bit about the work that I do. So I lead A/B testing experimentation programs for my clients. Um, and we essentially make changes. We run experiments, isolated experiments where users are randomly bucketed in each variation. And there's a stats calculator running so we can see if there's any statistical significance to the change we're seeing across many different metrics, or is it just due to random chance that there people are doing this more in this one variation? So we can know without a shadow of a doubt at the end of an experiment, once we reach that sig on the metrics, that this change that we made, whether it was adding a new module or changing a color or changing copy or whatever, we can know with 99% certainty that the lift we saw in the metric we're looking at was due to the change that we made in our isolated experiments. And something that I'm constantly talking to my clients about is of um this idea of like it's not winning or losing, it's winning or learning. We call losses learns. And you learn when you win too, but it's just more about reframing the negative, because we grow up thinking that we always want to be winning, obviously. We never want to lose. But in testing, if we make a change that hurts conversion and it hurts, orders or revenue or whatever kind of journey metrics we're looking at, if we know with certainty that this change hurt conversion, then we that tells us just as much about our users. We learn something about our users as we would if a different experience won. Now we know that this doesn't work. Well, why doesn't it work? Well, what did we really test here? It wasn't just like changing letters on a page. Did we change the tone of the messaging? Did we draw attention elsewhere? Okay, that doesn't work. So this idea of challenging those, like, and I think it's the same here, where you're not losing when you're not getting that output that you're looking for. You're capturing data. Like everything that you're doing when you're working on a new skill set, you're showing up, you're running an experiment. And there's really no downside, because either way, you're going to learn something. If you try to go about a habit, for example, that you want to create, whatever that is. You wanna do a habit where you get up and you go for a run every morning or something, and your strategy and your tactic is to whatever it is. You're gonna get your water bottle ready in the morning or something, and that's gonna help you kinda, reduce that friction and get on your run. If that isn't effective, then it's not like you lost anything. You just learned that that isn't enough to, like, light your motivation. That isn't enough to get you to take that action. So it's not necessarily that you can never be it's not that you can't be a runner. It's just that isn't the right input to get you there. So cool, that didn't work. What are some other ideas that could get my butt out of bed and going for a run in the morning? Um, so it's kind of interesting, this idea of like I work in experimentation. I'm analyzing data of experiments all day long, every day, and telling my clients what we're seeing in the data, what users are doing, and it's just I try to remind myself to have like to use that framework in my own life, and it is just like even when you're in it, day in and day out, it's so easy to just be like, "Oh, that's just my day job."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you literally do this for work. Like, this is your whole thing for work every single day, and when we started talking about this reps concept, you were like, "What?" Like, it was so
Yeah, yeah,
groundbreaking,
like it was the
and I
first time I've
think
ever heard it.
yeah, and I think that that's just really human, and the way that this is because it is so simple, it is almost like it hides right underneath our level of consciousness where if you're not aware of it, it's just gonna go by unnoticed. I love that example of the runner because I feel like I can totally relate to that story where you try one strategy and maybe you try that strategy because somebody else did that strategy and they're like, "Oh, yeah, just put your water bottle out and put your shoes out, and then as soon as you wake up, just, like, throw your shoes on and go out the door." And that worked for them. So you're like, okay, sweet. So I'm going to do that and it's going to be great. Yeah, that's the way. And that's going to turn me into a runner. And we have again, it's all we're going into it already with a fixed mindset of I just have to do this one thing. And then when that doesn't work, then immediately we go, well, I suck. I don't have motivation. I am not good at this. Maybe running's just not really my thing, and maybe I'll try again like in a few months or something. Or whatever reason we tell ourselves, that happens all the time, right? Whereas instead, if we can look at it like from the lens of experimentation as a scientist or as a data, whatever, what is your title even? Like a
Who are you? You
yeah,
said
sorry, who are you again? No, but
I'm
like
a senior growth strategist, but like
okay,
another type of person that analyzes data could be like a data scientist, right? They're
great.
like interpreting the
Yes.
data. Mhm.
So their whole thing is to get as much data as possible to then go, "Huh, interesting. That worked. That worked. That did not work. Now I'm going to take that information and I'm going to make some adjustments. I'm going to change this variable. We're going to dial up on this thing and turn this off and now we're going to try again." But we don't do that in our lives. We do not look at the information that we get from the activities that we're doing as data. We look at it as judgment, as I'm either good and I figured this out, or nope, it didn't work out. And so I suck and I'm never doing this again. And it's crazy that that happens because, like, even just talking about it, even just saying, collect the data and when you trial something new, collect some data and then go, huh, okay, why did that happen? Like, even just saying that, I feel a difference in my body. I totally feel completely different. Even thinking about running, or if I think about like how I've started showing up online, like doing this podcast, posting on Instagram, all of these things where it is so easy to fall into that role of judge, to go, well, I messed that up. I got no likes, I got no views, whatever the metric is, where you're like, "Oh god, I suck. I'm never doing this again." Instead of going, "Hang on a second. I'm going to do 10 reps and I'm going to collect all that data and I'm going to go, okay, like how did I feel about that? Why did that show up that way? Why did I do this or whatever?" And then go, "Okay, now let's go to the next 10 and I'm going to take the best 2 from that one and the worst 2 and I'm going to use that data to now impact my actions moving forward," which is essentially what you're doing, right? In your work, and you're using that as learns. This is such a powerful example of how the language that we use is so important because it totally shifts and changes our experience. Like I said, using the word experiment feels totally different to me, makes me feel different in my body than if I'm using, I don't even know what the word would be. It's just judgment. Like I do something and then I judge myself on it. I've either done it right or wrong. There's no in between. And then that that comes back to the story of like, well, I can't do this thing. So it's not for me. But I love that that's what you do in your job, and I love that you use that word, and that it's just about how many experiments can we do? Like, how many can we actually do? Because the more that we do, the more that we learn about our user. So if we apply that to our lives, it's like the more that I do, the more I learn about myself.
Yes, and when we have a learn, so we had a like every test starts with a hypothesis, right? This is the current experience. We're hypothesizing that this isn't quite right. By making this change, we expect the user to have this behavior. If we have a loss, right? We learn something about our user in that test. Oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes coming out of that learn, we have a more nuanced and dialed and relevant hypothesis because it's not only just an idea that we thought of or based on best practices, it's we are pulling something that we learned from our users into that next hypothesis, and that oftentimes leads to a win. So it's like if you tried the thing where you put your water bottle out and it didn't move the needle. Okay, that was a learn. That didn't work. That didn't move the needle. That tells me this about myself, that preparation isn't my issue. So what are some other kind of facets? What are some other strings I could pull on here? And by trying one of those other options, you're that much closer to getting that win. Um, and the last thing that I think experimentation can teach us.
Bring it on. I love it. This is so good. Honestly, it's so good because we don't talk about these things as an experiment,
I know.
but it's such a cool reframe. Do the
Yeah, it
experiment,
separates
do the
you.
reps.
It separates
Yeah.
you
Yes.
from the
That's
you're
it.
just a scientist running an
Yes.
experiment, and so you're not emotionally connected. It's just I'm not emotionally connected. Sometimes I am. I'm like, this variation's definitely gonna win, and then I'm humbled because
Yeah.
testing is extremely humbling. And testing is extremely humbling, and this is the other thing we can learn from experimentation because 80% of tests 80% of tests, no matter how good of a change you think it is, 80% of tests will either have a flat impact on conversion or it'll hurt it. 80%. So it can be a test or it could just be a website change, right? Like 80% of changes will either have no impact or they'll hurt conversion or like fail. There's like only 20% of tests win, and that is industry standard and normal. The 20% of winning tests pays for like you still have a like 5 times, 10 times return on investment on your testing program, paying for all those losing tests. You only need 20% of them to be winners, and that just so happens to be the case. But if we think about that in our lives too, like 80% of the things you try, the spaghetti you throw at the wall, your tactic for achieving your goal, 80% of those accept that like they will not move the needle or they'll like fail. So when our clients are like, we want to win more, it's like, cool, you need to test more because it's just a numbers game. 80% of the test, no matter how good, it's not like, oh, we need to be more strategic with our ideas. We need to think of bigger ideas. There's no difference in impact between big ideas and small ideas. We've proven that with our database of tests. So if you want to win more, the only answer is you need to increase velocity. You need to run more tests because then your 20% of winners, there'll be more of those because your total quantity of tests ran will be bigger. And so, like, that parallel with it's a numbers game. So get your 200 reps in so that you can, like, 20% of the time you're going to win, or, you just need to get those reps in order to get those wins in the first place. You're not going to get a win if you don't test. You're not going to get a multi-million dollar, change on your experiment if you don't test. And you're not going to achieve your goals if you don't put a rep in, unless you're just like naturally gifted and that's the only thing you care about in your life is that one little goal that you have.
That's hugely, hugely relevant because the only way that it sounds like your clients get to those wins is by getting the losses or the learns. Like, you're like, we need to get as many learns as we possibly can, so AKA reps, because every time we do one, we learn a little bit more about what the user needs. And that user is us in terms of whatever skill it is that we're working on. So whether it's art or whether it's running or whether it's communication or whether it's public speaking, whatever it is, whether it's like editing a video, you've got to do it. And it's not going to go well, but you're going to go, oh, well, okay, well, now I've got information that particular thing isn't quite it. So let me just adjust and try this. And oh, that didn't quite work either. Okay, next one, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And then eventually, holy shit, that worked. Okay, so we learned something there too. Let's double down on that. And then, and then we're going to have more tests, and you're going to continue to evolve, whether it's in work or whether it's in your personal life. But the crux of it is that you have to take action. And I love that word velocity. Like, how fast are you willing to move? How fast are you willing to fail? How fast are you willing to just go for it and just, like, let go of the expectation, let go of the outcome of needing to be right, needing to be perfect, let yourself be humbled through the process, and let yourself start to enjoy the process. Enjoy being bad at something and just being like, "Who cares? Who cares?" Like, your first 10 are gonna suck, but your next 10 are gonna be better than your first 10. So how cool is it to think that if you did that 10 times, you're gonna be better. You're gonna be better after 100 times.
Mhm. And even if you're not like a bit better after 10, because progress might be not be linear, you might need like 50 in order to see like just no, don't worry about it. Just show up. Do not even think about the outcome. Like I think that's the biggest thing for me. And that's like the saying is enjoy the journey. It's all about the journey. Don't hyper fixate on the outcome. But yeah, just get into the habit of showing up, and, like, you probably will start to enjoy it because you're gonna see yourself gain momentum at some point, whether it's, like, whether it's 50 reps in, at some point you'll start to get better, and that's gonna feel really cool when you can challenge that self-belief, that story you've been carrying around for 25 years, um, and you can just say, "I'm not bad at art. I just never I just never sat down. I never tried it. So of course I wasn't going to be good at it. But look at me now. Look at this painting I made or whatever."
It still sucks, but I love it. Like, it's not amazing, but it's like it's me it's like proof that I'm willing to put my heart out there and to give it a go, and I think that is such an important element of it too. It's like, yes, you can put in the reps, but it's also about, like, giving yourself permission to just show up as you are and to, like, find joy in doing the process and doing the reps. You shared a really interesting example of this a few days ago, and I think it's important that we touch on it. You were talking about meditation, and I had made a post about how I had done a practice. I've just started meditating recently, and my brain just went on this, like, massive tangent. And when I realized that I went on this tangent, I came back to myself and I felt myself going, "Does this even count? Like, does this have I just basically wasted this entire practice because I went on such a big tangent?" And in that moment, I noticed my fixed mindset thinking that story of, like, "Oh, I didn't do it right, and so it doesn't even count." That's, like, my story. And then going, "No, no, no, that's part of it. That's part of it is being able to, like, sit with the thoughts and accept them and let them go." But you took it to, like, a whole new level for me, and I think it really ties into you did, and it ties into this aspect of what we're talking about of finding joy in the process.
hmm
So do you wanna share a little bit
hmm
about what that insight was from you?
Yeah. So it was something that I heard along the way in the meditation world. And essentially, the idea is that I think typically we think of like quantity equals one for a rep is you show up and you do the thing. So in this case, like for meditation, you sit down and you get a rep in. I got my rep in today. I sat down for 10 minutes. I got my rep in yesterday. I sat down for 10 minutes. And the purpose is in that rep is to ultimately be able to quiet your mind. That would be like the final outcome. But how it was reframed for me at some point along the way was this idea that the rep isn't the sitting down. The rep is every time you catch yourself in a thought, you have awareness of being in a thought, and you flex the muscle by releasing that thought and going, "Oh, I'm in a thought right now. Okay, I'm going to let that go. I'm separate from my thoughts." Having that awareness of the thought and bringing your attention back to your breathing or, your core, is the point. Like, that is the muscle that we're building here, so that when you're in your daily life and, you can start to, after doing all of these reps, you can start to more easily identify, oh, I've been stuck in a thought pattern for the last 10 days or 2 hours, or I am circling, obsessing over this thought or this, like, what happened earlier today. The idea is that we can get better and more effective at easily identifying that we're in a thought so as to allow it to release and to come back to ourselves. And that is what we're doing in meditation. The whole point is to practice noticing that you're in a thought and letting it go and coming back to yourself. That's the flexing. It's not flexing of like sitting down and just trying to keep your mind quiet for 10 minutes or 20 minutes while you're there. And I feel like that reframe is really helpful because you're going to have a lot of thoughts in your mind constantly, especially if you try to sit down and quiet them. So it almost makes it feel like you want those thoughts to arrive because then you have the opportunity to, it might be a couple minutes down the road or it could be 5 minutes where you go, oh my gosh, where have I been? I've just been like thinking about laundry or whatever it is. But that flex of bringing it back to yourself is the rep. And that's okay. Like that's what we're actually after, is strengthening that muscle.
Yeah. I think that's such a cool way to look at it. Like, something that would typically be framed as a negative, as a opportunity to judge yourself, instead literally going like, "Yes, I had a thought. I went on a tangent. Now I get to come back." Like, that was the rep. I got to do it again. And when you said that, I was like, "Man, that's so powerful." That feels like the secret. If you could
Mhm.
approach every situation where you're being challenged, where you're being pushed outside of your comfort zone, where you're having to do something you haven't done before that you know you're not very good at, if instead of going, "Oh man, that was so embarrassing," or like, that did not come across the way I wanted it to," or, "Oh man, I just like totally messed that up." Instead of doing that, going, "Yes, I just got another opportunity to flex the muscle and it didn't go well, but like, here I am getting to practice. I get to come back to myself again. I'm noticing that this just happened. And how amazing that I just broke that pattern and I did something different. And yes, it was clunky and awkward and it didn't go that well, but holy shit, I am moving. I am taking control back. I am taking my power back by going, I did it. I did it. And it wasn't perfect, but I did it. And now I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to wait for that thought to come. And I'm going to go on a tangent. And then I'm going to come back and go, hang on. There it is again. There's another rep. I just got a little bit stronger. I just got a little bit more aware. I think if we could truly step into that, like, imagine how powerful we could be.
Mhm. This idea of celebrating your failures. And you hear about
Yes.
some people talking about that, but I totally agree. If we could just, and it literally applies to anything, whether it is like a new skill set or a hobby, pottery, whatever, or it's like communication skills with your
Mm.
partner where, like you something didn't come out very elegantly and you end up in a little bit of a tiff with your partner because of it, but your intentions weren't to say the wrong thing, it just came across wrong. Maybe communication isn't a strong suit of yours. If you could just go like celebrate in that moment.
Mm.
Like, babe, I just messed that up. What a good reframe. And maybe make it a thing where if communication isn't a strong suit of yours, maybe you have that conversation with your partner and you say, like, I am not I'm not good at this thing yet. I love how you use that word yet. I'm not good at this thing yet. I wanna be. I wanna be. I know that it's going to open my world in order to strengthen this. And I'm willing to be uncomfortable putting these reps in and getting there. And I know that I'll get better if I put the reps in. So to use your words, like it's gonna be a little clunky and awkward, but I would so much rather just get the rep in and say it wrong, but at least, like let's celebrate that I actually, didn't just hold that in, that I said it out loud. And with time, I'll get more comfortable. It'll be less scary, it'll be less new. I'll get those reps in. And how incredible would that be? So I love that it applies to everything. Like anything that you wanna be more effective, better at, like any way you wanna grow your world, um, like you can apply this framework, which is just so freeing. Like you aren't stuck being you. Like how amazing is that?
Yeah, it
You
is.
can just grow into whoever you wanna be.
Yes, it is the most we've said liberating a couple of times, but I think that is one of the most accurate words that you could use in this situation. I love that example about communication and relationships. I feel like that is so incredibly relatable. And everybody can relate to that, like it's not something that we were really actively taught. A lot of us anyway, were actively taught how to have those hard conversations or how to stand up for ourselves or how to even just like voice our needs in an effective way. And what you really said is that hey, I'm trying something different and I'm gonna mess it up because I have to fail. Like, I can't just be like, "Oh, I wanna communicate better," and then all of a sudden I'm just like a level 45 communicator, like, out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden I can just do it, no problem, and I can hold space for everyone, and I can so beautifully say everything that I need to say without ever hurting anyone's feelings. I mean, I don't even think that's being a great communicator, but just as an example, you have to you have to be bad at it and you're going to make mistakes, but being able to celebrate like, "Hey, I said something," instead of like going and hiding in my room for 2 hours and crying by myself or whatever that looks like. I tried and I showed up and I'm willing to do this like you said because I know that it's going to open my world up and it's going to benefit not just me but it's also going to benefit every single person that I have a relationship with because I'm willing to sit in that discomfort and I know that that is the way. That is the way to get to whatever it is that you want is by starting out wherever you are now and being honest about where you are now and just accepting like I'm not good at this yet. I'm really not. I really suck at this right now. Make sure you add right now or yet to to the end of that sentence by the way because that is crucial for your brain to go, "Oh, there's a possibility here that there could be a shift. I'm not stuck
Mhm.
in the current version of who I am. I'm not stuck in the current skill sets that I have. Anything that I want to do, I can get better at it by being willing to you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Like let's be real about that. There is an element of like you have to be willing to step outside of what you know. And if you don't feel willing to do that, then that's okay, but you have to accept that your life as it is right now is all it's ever going to be. And if that's amazing for you, if that is enough for you. But for I think the vast majority of us, even if we don't admit it to ourselves, there's so much more that we want for ourselves and that we feel that we could be capable of. And this is how we close the gap. But you have to be willing to take that first step and just acknowledge, yeah, I suck at this right now, but I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to celebrate the failures and I'm going to find joy in the learning, in the data. How much data can I collect? How much learning can I do so that I can get to a point where, holy crap, my world is so much bigger. It's so much richer now because of all of these avenues that I've allowed myself to take. And it's not like you have to get to expert level of everything. It's not like you have to be like, well, Brooke and Megan said that I need to like do the reps on everything. It's not that. It's about being willing to open yourself up to it and to see what comes of it. There's going to be certain things where you might want to take it all the way. And there's going to be certain things where you're like, now I have like a level of understanding where if I were to go into a conversation and someone was to say, "Hey, like I'm really into pottery. I'd be able to hold a conversation with them because I've done enough reps to know a little bit about how it works, and I can speak to them about that, and I think that leads to so much more connection and just so many more opportunities for such a beautiful, full life.
I totally agree. And what a cool tool as well, just to go back to the um like undoing these narratives, these stories that we have of ourselves, like taking a look at yourself and seeing where you're maybe not, where you may be lacking a little bit right now, and being willing to be uncomfortable to make some changes and get some reps in. I mean, if you knew that you would get better by putting the reps in, then it might be more worth being uncomfortable in those early stages to get through it. Because I think a lot of the time, yeah, we go through the uncomfortable phase and we're like, oh, it's just not for me. But if you know, which you should at the end of this conversation, that it would be unreasonable for you to not get better, then maybe that makes it a little bit easier to move the needle and to shift some of these stories that you're carrying around and that keep your life smaller and keep you from communicating, because you're not a good communicator and your parents weren't good communicators. So you're just not like, if you knew that if you actually just practiced it, that you would be better, would you be more likely to challenge that narrative and actually start that? I
Mm,
like for me, yes. Like how,
absolutely.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's, again, it feels like we're talking about this big secret.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
Seriously.
"Guys, this is it. Like, this is the thing." Like, lean into it, you know? And I do agree with the whole identity and language bit, like, you have to create in order to change the story, you have to create new evidence. If you don't have new evidence, if you don't move, if you don't collect data, your brain's just gonna go off of what it knows. And right now, if you're someone who has struggled to try new things or to stick with things for long enough to see results, your brain's got some pretty deeply ingrained stories that that is true for you. And of course, whatever you tell yourself is what is true for you. And so we have to create doubt. And the only way to create doubt of that story is to move, is to experiment and to get some reps where your brain goes, hang on, but I thought we were this type of person, but now you're doing something different. What does that mean? And as soon as you have that doubt, that's that's the starting point. That's where you can start to go, "No, I'm switching this. This is no longer my story. This was my story. I can acknowledge that it was my story. This was my old story for 25, 30 years. But now I've got a new one. And the more that we build evidence and that we build data, the more that that new story can start to take shape and the more that we can shift the language that we're using when we're talking about ourselves and to ourselves. And that is what is going to then propel us into a totally different life because we're no longer stuck as the version that we were at 15. Like in any other situation, you would never keep using old programming like that. You would never go like, well, I have this
Mhm.
phone from like 2006 and it's great. And
My
so I'm just going
razor,
to,
my
yeah, yeah,
flip razor.
yeah, the pink one. Like, yeah, I would still use that phone forever. Like, you would never do that because like technology has advanced so much and programming has advanced so much. So it would be silly to continue using old programming when you have access to all this new stuff. So why do we not give ourselves the same chance with our own programming in our mind? Why are we continuing to use this story that doesn't serve us from when we were 10, 15, 18 years old? We have so much more knowledge and experience and joy and love to share with the world from all these things that we've experienced. So why would we want to stay in that story that came from when we were a teenager when we can go, hang on, okay, that was great. Thank you for your service story. I appreciate it. But now I am stepping into this new version of me, and that story no longer has a place because here is my new story. Here is who I am now. And that version of me is much more expansive because I'm willing to look at something I've never done before. And instead of going, I don't do that, I can say, I'm not good at that yet, but I will be. but I will be.
That was so beautifully said. Um, and you never had a chance with that original story. You didn't sit down and intentionally craft that. You didn't choose that story. So the like now, when you feel ready for this work to be intentional and go, is that who I want to continue being? Do I want to continue carrying that story moving forward? Am I too scared to not? Sure. Then you have to take the trade-off, which is that smaller life and not growing and staying in that shame or, whatever that story is. But you never intentionally wrote that story to begin with. It might as well have just been printed on you. It was essentially. And you do have the opportunity to change it and to grow into, yeah, to grow into all of the ways that you want to and connect in all the ways that you want to. So, like for me, it's a hell yes. For me, it's like, okay, cool. I can be intentional here and be honest with myself and just have so much more fun and feel so much more momentum and like magic, feeling like I literally have the secret. I wish that book name wasn't taken because we gotta write a book on this. Um, or just get a tattoo or something. We need a friendship tattoo. But yeah, it's such a freeing idea. And it's been so fun to explore it with you. It's just think of like, the common stick with it. You can do it compared to everything that we've just unpacked. It's the same thing. It is the same message, like just keep going. But it's just so weak. It's not the right language to make you feel inspired. So yeah, thank you for the conversation and for for starting this all for me with Alex Ramosi and a stupid ad thing. For whatever reason that clicked. It probably won't click for a lot of people because they're just like, I don't get it, like whatever. But yeah, it's been such an awesome conversation and I just feel so energized by it. And I know we now have this that we can look back on and remind ourselves, but I even feel like in the weeks since we've kind of been having this conversation that it's so easy to forget this. So I do feel like it's just this constant reminder. It's not just think about it, for a while and then it's just programmed into you. Like the programming of the opposite of what we're used to, where you're just good at things or you're bad at things, runs so deep that for me, at least, I feel like I need to put this on my wall or, I need to be exposed to this to remind myself constantly that I need to put the reps in if I want to get to where I need to be.
I agree. I agree totally. And I think it's an important reminder that, yeah, this work never ends. Even though I've been talking about this and learning about this on my own for years now, it still shows up all the time in ways that you just don't expect. Like you can focus on it in a certain area for so long and get really intentional and then it'll just pop up in another area because it's your underlying operating system. Like you said, it's a story that was basically printed on you when you were a kid and but how empowering to go, yeah, 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 that story was printed on me, but now I'm going to take my power back and I get to choose this next edition. I get to choose what this next story is going to say. I get to choose the words that I use. I get to choose the actions that I take. I get to choose how I respond to these failures and how I can frame them for myself so that I can really take hold of this life and make sure that moving forward I am making the absolute most of it all. And I want to say thank you to you as well as we're wrapping up this conversation just for being such a safe space for me over the past few months as I've been kind of exploring all these pieces for myself. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of this work on my own and I guess probably in more of like an internal sense whereas now over the past few months it's starting to shift like that, progress isn't linear. It's starting to shift to be more external where I'm taking all of these skills and experiences that I've had and now putting it together into building this business and building this presence for myself online, and having you as that safe space that I've confided in, like, throughout, you've been there for every piece of me going, hang on, I think I want to start a coaching business, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'll just wait until like 5 years from now or something. And then going, no, 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 I'm going to do it. And then going, okay, so I'm going to start posting on social media eventually, and I'm going to start a podcast, and you're going to hear about it. To then going, okay, I'm doing it. I've started posting. I've started my podcast, and now I want you on my podcast because this has
Yeah.
been this truly has been such a special experience for me, and I'm so glad that we've just documented it, and I'm so grateful for your friendship and that we've reconnected after all these years. And even though we're on opposite sides of the world, we're still finding ways to have such meaningful, deep conversations about this stuff. And it really has given me a new sense of energy and drive to go after this. And even this conversation today is like another reminder of like, yes, okay,
Mhm.
all in the process. It's all in the reps. I've got to go away and get some reps in because I've got these
Mhm.
goals and I've got these things that I want to do, and I've got to get some more failures happening for
Yeah.
myself. And so thank
Mhm.
you so much for this conversation and for your friendship and for everything. I'm just super grateful to have someone like
Oh.
you in my life.
Thank you so much. So sweet. It is truly my pleasure. Like, it has been so fun watching you just flourish and unfold into this new version of yourself, and I'm here for it. I'm so excited to keep
Love it.
watching.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for listening. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming along this amazing journey as we talk about doing the reps. And if there's one thing that you can get out of this episode, I hope it's that you can let go of the outcome and really trust the process. So thank you guys. And thank you, Megan. I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.